Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1069, the Explosion pop-up, and you can check out all of our die designs at karenburniston.com. There are 8 dies in the set, and it's the largest one that cuts the explosion sides for the card. Now the actual cut piece will end up being 3 inches by 6 inches, so I recommend that you cut your lightweight pattern paper to 4 inches by 6.5 inches, giving you a little room around it for die cutting. It is a very good idea to look for extremely lightweight pattern paper, or even maybe wrapping paper, something lightweight that will still hold its shape, because all of those folds of those finished explosion sides will stack up on top of each other when the card is closed. So while the explosion sides would work with cardstock, it would definitely make your card very bulky. Another great reason to use lightweight paper is that you can easily die cut through both layers at one time. So I've stacked up my lightweight pattern paper. I'm using a Sizzix Big Shot. You can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die, and that die will both cut it and score it. Okay, let's look at folding these sides. I start by back folding the center fold. That way I can see all of the score lines on the pretty side of the paper where the blade has actually touched the paper. And I'm going to do the largest diagonal fold. So I'm going to fold over that big triangle. Keeping everything folded, I now want to locate the 4 horizontal lines, and I'm going to work those 4 folds through all layers. I'm folding away from myself because I find that the easiest, but this is just about training the folds. So after doing this on all 4 of those horizontal folds, everything gets returned back to its open position. And as I open up this piece, you'll see that now all of the lines in the piece are visible. The first one I want to work is I want to get both of the big diagonals to be valley folds so that when I collapse this piece, the big triangle will fold into the piece. See that? So I've just made that big giant triangle folding into the piece. So to do the explosions, I'm going to work one half and then the other. First thing I do is I look, in the center I have a mountain, so the next fold down, the corner fold should be valley. So that one's already a valley, but look, this one over here isn't, so I need to reverse it. So now I've got valley, valley. And then the next corner fold will be mountain, mountain. So I need to get in there and work mountain, mountain. And the combination of the valleys and the mountains will actually allow me to collapse the explosion in one more layer. So here's what I mean by that. I've got valleys, mountains, and that means I can collapse this up, and this little section will actually collapse into the piece. So I have one section done on one half of the explosion. And then I just need to repeat that again. So I come out here to my final sets of folds. The first set is valley, valley. The next set is mountain, mountain. And as the folds get shorter, it becomes easier to do this. You can see I can do that little one with just a pinch through both layers. But you can see I've just got alternating folds. And then as I collapse the piece, everything will collapse inward. Okay, now I'm going to turn around and do the exact same thing on the other side. Mountain in the middle, so that means that the next corner should be valley, valley. So this one up here needs to be reversed because it's looking like a mountain. Once I get valley, valley on my first corner, then I want to do mountain, mountain on the next one. So mountain, mountain on the next corner. And the combination of valleys and mountains allows these 2 sections to collapse inward as the piece is closed, so I can do that. Okay, one more time to repeat that. Out here on the end, I need to do valley, valley for the first corner, and then mountain, mountain for the final one. That little one at the end being very easy to do because the folds are so short. And then just making sure everything collapses inward. This is the finished explosion side. I promise this is actually quite easy. It may seem like a lot of origami folds right now, and it is. And by the way, origami paper would work great for these. But just re-watch this as many times as you need to, and you're going to fold your second explosion side exactly the same. You choose your card size, and you can make A2 explosion cards. I decided to go a little bit larger for my card, so I've cut a piece of cardstock to 5 inches by 11 inches and scored it in the middle for folding. Okay, collapsing down an explosion side, I'm now going to add that into the card. And I want the center fold of the explosion right in the center fold of the card. And then I can use any adhesive. I'm using a tape runner, plenty of surface area to hold on to with a tape runner as long as you kind of shellac it. You want the triangle cutout to be towards the outside of the card. So when you're deciding which side this goes on, you can use that as a guide. And then just making sure it stays right in the center fold of the card, I can give that a good press. So now I've attached one side. The other side is going to be even easier because it's already positioned in the card. I just need to add my adhesive, hold that flat, close the card against it. Once both sides are attached, the explosion will start working. You open the card, it will pop up outward beyond the limits of the card, which is a pretty cool look. And then I just need to add the other one in the exact same manner. I'm going to speed up the footage here so I can do this lightning fast. Tape runner all over the flat parts, triangle towards the outside, close the card against the exposed adhesive, and now I've got them both in the card, exploding nicely. If you would like to add the included pop-up in between those explosion sides, you're going to need a card to fit between those triangles. So for my card, that width was 3¼ inches, and then on the height I went with 6 inches, which is the same height as the explosion sides, and then scored that in the middle for folding. The die set includes this extremely generic double box pop-up, and it has alignment nubs on the side of the die that are meant to line up exactly over the fold of the card, anywhere along the fold. I will just center it today and make sure that I've used a temporary removable tape to hold it in place while I roll it through my machine. This little double box pop-up is very easy to train. Fold in the middle, and then just grab the box itself and fold over on the bottom score line. And you can do that in both directions to train those folds. Now when you open the card and pop it from the back, that big box should pop into the card. And it'll probably even just try to fold the small box for you, which is fine. But if it doesn't, you can do that easily by just folding over the small box now and back. Then when you open the card, the small box is trained, pop it from behind the card, it will fold into the card, and that is how simple it is to train that double box pop-up. Another nice feature of that little double box pop-up is that you choose the orientation, so you can either have the small box at the top or you can flip it around and have the small box at the bottom, and that's just completely up to you based on how you plan to decorate it. For today's card, I'd like to have the small box at the top. Now to add that into the card, it's super easy. Just collapse the pop-up down into its closed position, making it very easy to avoid all the pop-up areas with adhesive, and just add a tape runner all over the flat parts of the back of that pop-up. And then you just want to make sure the fold is in the fold, and then you can attach that whole side inside the card. Second half is even easier because it's already attached to the card now, so just collapse it down. Tape runner everywhere all over the flat parts, avoiding anything that's the pop-up, and then just carefully close the card against that exposed adhesive. Once that side is attached, you've got a working pop-up. It is so generic, you can really decorate this for any theme. I love to add strips of paper across the edges just in case they don't perfectly line up because that will disguise it. And I'm just using a pattern paper and a tape runner to do that. I went with 1-inch strips on mine. Our pop-up die sets always include decorator pieces so that you can make a nice card using primarily just the pieces in the die set when you need to. In this case, you get 4 balloons with this set and a couple swirly-doos. The balloons themselves have a little stencil feature. I used a white gel pen to add those highlights. The swirly-doos make great balloon strings, and you can just use an adhesive to attach the balloon to either side of the swirly-doo, and that will change which way it swirls. And I am using my favorite, which is my Lineco Neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle, and we do sell both of those items on our website. So I did all 4 balloons in 4 different colors, so I have 16 to choose from as I decorate here, and that will give me plenty for both the inside of the card and the outside of the card. And I can attach those balloons basically anywhere to the pop-up or to each other, to the explosion sides. So you can do all sorts of fun things with this to create a pop-up sculpture. And what I'm doing here is I'm just attaching the blue balloon string to the red balloons string. So even though the blue one didn't touch the pop-up, it touched the first one, and so that means I can get it a little bit higher that way. Okay, so now I'm just going to continue adding balloons, and you can see I've even have some attached to the explosion sides. You can do that as well. Just watch your height, that they stay within the card when the card is closed. Another thing you can do with your explosion side die is take advantage of that fun scalloped edge to make borders for your card. So I've cut a piece of pattern paper to 3/4 of an inch and just laid it right along that pretty edge. And then once I've cut one side, all I have to do is turn that piece over and tape it inside the die so that it will cut the outer edge with the same pretty scallops. So here's my finished border. I'm actually going to save that one for the front and do a couple with a 1/2 inch strip that are even skinnier for the inside of the card. Our large word dies work so perfectly with this die set. And today I am going to use Happy Birthday, and I've cut it out of both red and white so that I can offset the white one just a little bit to create a drop shadow. The large word dies being in a single piece makes them particularly well suited for the pop-ups. I can go in then and add my Happy Birthday to that lower box, and it really just fills the space nicely. But you do have to watch balloon strings getting caught up in your greeting, so I had to move this one. I just snipped off the balloon string, flipped it around the other way, and moved it so that it would no longer get caught up on my H. Another great add-on die, and it would be completely optional, would be to add any of our crosshatch nested shape dies. What I love about these shape dies is the crosshatch pattern is very gender and theme neutral. And then in each set, you get 7 dies, 4 of which have the crosshatch pattern, and then the other 3 are interspersed that just have a decorative score line. And that gives you a little visual break from so much pattern. So my circle will be the place that I can add my personal greeting, and I embellished it with a couple of my leftover balloons, and then I'll put one here on the back wall as well with a pop dot behind the balloon itself. Just a quick check to make sure I don't have any catch points. My very favorite way to design a card front is just to make a simple lead-in using my leftover materials. So I used the same pattern paper, cut a couple more circles with my crosshatch circle set, made those borders and layered them together, and then leftover balloons and some sequins. And then I can just add that to the front of my card using a tape runner. And then depending on the weight of the front of the card, you may choose to add a panel to the back as well. And that's just about balance. You don't want your card to fall over backwards as it's opened. This one's actually standing quite nicely, so putting a back panel is completely optional. And then the only other thing I added to the interior of my card is a few more of those sequins. I liked them on the outside, so I thought I'd throw a few on the inside as well. And that card, when it is closed up, measures 5 by 5.5, means that it will fit nicely in an A7 envelope. Now, as for postage, you should probably plan, because of all the layers, that these explosion cards will typically require the extra ounce stamp. However, this particular one, because that pink paper was so thin, it will flatten below 1/4 of an inch, and I would be able to mail this card for a single stamp. My video card was heavily influenced by the one that I made for the packaging sample for the die itself. And this one is very similar, except for I used the word celebrate and I used the crosshatch squares instead of the circles. But you can see that the overall design of the card is very similar. On the celebrate one, I actually added little strings around each of the balloons, so that's another thing you could try. And of course you are not limited to balloons on your pop-up. For this one, I used the expanding tree from the Christmas Trees Pop Stand inside the card, and I also used our gift card label die, not for a gift card, but just chopped in half and used decoratively at the top and the bottom. Please do ask for our products at your local independent stamping and scrapbooking stores. We love to find more stores that would like to carry our products, and that way you can shop locally and we can support those stores. Otherwise, you will find this die on our website and some of your favorite online retailers starting September 2018. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.